We've docked this morning in Civitavecchia and taken the drive into Rome, about an hour and a half in average traffic, but we've arrived in the gorgeous, sunny, eternal city of Rome. And we're going to explore it from top to bottom with a wonderful guide who I'm thrilled to introduce, Franco.
Ciao, so nice to meet you.
Ciao, thank you for spending 2 days with us exploring this glorious city.
It will be my pleasure and my honor to be your guide over here.
Give me a quick overview of what we're looking at.
Well, actually, this is the most important archaeological area in town. You can see the Colosseum. There's a general overview over the Forum with its most important buildings, and the Aventine Hill with the remains of the Palace of the Caesars.
I think we'll get down and learn a lot more.
Definitely we will.
Andiamo. Our first stop in Rome was at the Trevi Fountain. We had planned to arrive very early so we could film and have it to ourselves, almost, because it's never empty. But the fountain cleaners thwarted our efforts, so we moved on to return later in the day. Andiamo. I would have never found this on my own, and I've never been here. Vicus
Caprarius.
Caprarius. Tell me what I'm going to see inside.
Actually, this is the little secret, a little surprise for you.
It's Harry's bar.
Yes, on the other side. We're just about a couple of blocks away from the Trevi Fountain,
yes.
And during the refurbishment of a movie theater, they have found that there's a little gem from the past. Underground remains and a branch of the aqueduct of the Acqua Virgo, which is still feeding the Trevi Fountain.
Oh, let's go see.
Andiamo.
So Franco, we're at the very bottom of this secret, wonderful museum site. I feel like I could walk on this Roman road into a home. I see a floor, or am I correct? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, you're correct. This is actually about 40 feet beneath the level of the Trevi Fountain. And you're looking at the remains of an apartment building, a condo, that was redone after the Nero's fire in 64 AD. And it's been transformed throughout the centuries, and it's flooded by the waters from the Virgin Water Aqueduct, which is still feeding the Trevi Fountain.
So the same aqueduct from Nero's time is still feeding Trevi Fountain, and we still hear the water here.
Yes.
This is fantastic. It really is transporting into ancient Rome, and I'm loving it. And the mosaic floor, as I mentioned. So tell me what we're going to see as we go further.
Actually, this is like a time machine, or better, like a tin of lasagna. So where we have a different layers corresponding to different ages. And usually the deeper is the older.
Okay,
this is the oldest level.
This is the oldest after 69 AD. No
Yes.
charred remains from Nero's fire. Okay.
No charcoal.
No charcoal. There is one site that has charcoal. I know that. I'm not crazy. So we're in the bottom layer. This is post Nero's fire, which was 64 AD. And tell me what we're going to see as we climb up the steps.
Well, actually, as we climb up the steps, we have a water tank still from the Virgin Water Aqueduct. And then we have the remains of the private noble villa that was built on top of this condominium, and then the medieval layer. And
the water tanks that we'll see were built by the Romans.
Yes.
And you were explaining to me on the way down that they're still watertight.
Exactly. And there are still the original plaster coating around, which is hydro-repulsive and still in great conditions.
Oh, let's go climb up through history.
Prego.
Right hand, left shoulder. I have no idea if I made it, but I think I'll be back to Rome. So you haven't told me where you're taking me next.
Well, it's there. That's the Pantheon. That's the best preserved Roman temple into town.
But you didn't mention the
old-
obelisk.
And I know
My
you love
Egypt fixation. This takes me to Julius Caesar bringing Cleopatra to Rome.
And it's dating back to that same time when just behind the Pantheon there was a large temple to Isis, the Egyptian
That Julius
goddess
Caesar
of
built.
the moon. Exactly.
But I know you've brought me here for the Pantheon, and it's glorious too.
And this is actually the reconstruction of the former temple that was burned under Nero in 64 AD.
Ah,
It's dating back to the age of Hadrian, the second Spanish emperor of Rome, the largest self-supporting dome cupola ever built by the Romans, which is over 140 feet in diameter.
it is unbelievable.
It's still surviving, as the majority of the temples that were in good conditions in the Middle Ages were donated to the Christian communities. So this was turned into a church in the 7th century.
Just the perfection of it.
Definitely. You see the columns outside, the gray stone is from the
And
quarries.
as you've taught me, the holes up top are what were holding the marble.
That was holding the marble, well, the bronze
Yes?
portrait. There was a quadriga, so there was a sculpture, the chariot pulled by 4 horses with a portrait of Hadrian.
Ah, and where is that survived?
No, it didn't. Plundered and fused it to make coins from, or shields or daggers.
I have a few ancient Roman coins. Maybe I have part of it.
Why not?
I think so. I will pretend. Oh, it's fantastic. Outside and inside.
It's perfect.
It is perfect.
Built without the support of any computer, any calculator, just the abacus.
It's wonderful. I had visited the Pantheon many times and always marveled at the genius of its construction. But I had never stopped to examine the fountain right in front. It was designed in the 16th century and capped with an Egyptian obelisk, first erected in Egypt by Ramses II. Franco also explained that Julius Caesar had built a temple dedicated to Cleopatra that stood right behind where the Pantheon stands today. We were walking in the footsteps of so many centuries, and I loved it. Then it was on to chestnuts, markets, and a visit to Piazza del Campidoglio, or Capitoline Square, to marvel at the genius of Michelangelo's design, the copy of the magnificent Marcus Aurelius statue, and the views of Rome. We ended our very full day with a walk around Rome in the evening and a return visit to the Trevi Fountain. Good morning, Franco.
Buongiorno, good morning.
Buongiorno, our
Ciao.
second morning in beautiful Rome, and
Yes.
you have brought me to a residential hillside, beautiful mansions, but why have you brought me here?
Because actually this is the Aventine Hill. We're very close to Circus Maximus, Palatine and Colosseum. It's a residential area with a lot of surprises underground, like the place I
Okay.
took you to yesterday. But in particular over here we have the headquarters of the Priory of Malta, the Sovereign Order of the Knights of Malta, which is under the Vatican Protectorate.
Yes.
And this is considered to be the smallest independent sovereign nation in the world. And looking through that keyhole, you have a spectacular view over the gardens, and those gardens are actually framing the dome of the St. Peter's Basilica.
Oh, should we go look?
Why don't we go? Looking through this keyhole, you can see those trees, those bushes that are framing
Oh
St.
my
Peter's Dome.
That is gorgeous. Oh, it's like magical.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's like a telescope on the Vatican, focused on the Vatican.
That is so gorgeous. I'll let you look. I know you want to every time.
It's so beautiful there.
One more look.
Yes, please do. This is a magic moment.
Oh, wow. It's truly a magic moment. And we're heading there soon.
Yeah.
But this is real peek into Rome, the Knights of Malta, and they had to design that arbor.
Well, I believe that really happened by coincidence, by chance, exactly.
What a magnificent coincidence. I mean, it's just perfection.
Geometry, perspective, Mother Nature worked another miracle.
I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the day's done. That was perfect. Now, in high season, middle of summer, would there be people coming to see this, or is it a secret?
Let's say that you may be, by 9 o'clock a.m., you may be waiting in line for about 45, 50 minutes. So it's better to come here when it's really early, 7:30, 8 o'clock a.m.
This is fabulous. Yeah, it's all to ourselves. So in the courtyard of this church, I've found a Roman bath.
You find actually, yes, a Roman bathtub. You see pieces, small chunks of granite, porphyry, and the green serpentine. There's a huge bathtub from granite too.
Look at the granite. Wow.
Well,
Beautiful.
there's so many archaeological finds over here. This is like a lasagna, like the place that we saw yesterday.
It's beautiful. I mistakenly thought when we left the Forum area we would be leaving ancient Rome, but we didn't.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So let's make our way into the beautiful gardens of the Church of Saint Sabine, which are over there.
I see oranges.
Yes, you
in
find
early March.
Yes, so you find oranges on these trees till early June.
Till early June?
Yes, that's the end of the orange season.
Which is the beginning in most of the world.
Definitely.
It speaks to your temperate climate. This is perfect temperature here.
It really is. And then you have pine trees.
And pine nuts.
And pine nuts, of course.
Which I just learned come from these trees.
Yes, these are the Mediterranean pine trees, originally from Mid-East. And their average life is about a century, so sooner or later some of these trees will be cut off and replaced by younger plants.
Can I go look at the orange trees? Just because I find them so unexpected in the middle of March.
These are all bitter oranges.
Oh. So they make marmalade with them?
Exactly, that's why nobody's picking them up.
Beautiful gardens. So the church owns these gardens, but they're public. They are public. They're dog runs, they're strolling.
You see medieval walls all the way around, and as we turn left, we have the most beautiful perspective over the dome of the St. Peter's Basilica.
This might be better than the keyhole.
These rows of pine trees are actually framing the entire Vatican State. The dome of St. Peter's, it's like binoculars. In reality,
it is. It's like
from this distance, the St. Peter's Dome looks huge, but then when you get to the edge, right by the terrace, you realize that it's a little smaller.
The perspective is off, but it's magnificently off. It's great.
This is another optical trick, which is fantastic.
I think I've used magnificent way too much in touring with you. I've got to find another word, but it's very applicable.
This is a place where actually people could find shelter in the summertime from the heat,
it'd
the
be
sunshine.
nice and cool.
Come for a picnic, relax, like we all do. This is where I used to take my kids.
I would bring my dog. You've brought me to a beautiful square. We're going to have a cappuccino, which is a perfect morning. But I can't stop looking at this gorgeous church. Tell me about where we are.
We are in the heart of the Trastevere neighborhood. Trastevere means across the Tiber River, because Colosseum, Spanish Steps, and the Pantheon are on the other side of town. It's a lovely neighborhood, and especially young people want to stay here. That's the beautiful church of Santa Maria in Trastevere. It's an early medieval church with a lot of beautiful mosaics, like the one you can see
frieze is just beautiful.
It's one of the most beautiful mosaics dating back to the late 1200s. The bell tower, the Romanesque bell tower, one of the most stylish bell towers in town. Good restaurants, good food. We're gonna have a good cappuccino pretty soon.
It really is. It's beautiful. I love the mosaics around, and I'm a particular fan of the micro mosaics that I know they make around Vatican City.
That's a glass mosaic.
Yeah, and this is just a larger version.
Definitely,
of
you see Virgin Mary with a child,
yes,
and more women bringing their offerings.
Now, the homes that people lived in when this church was built around here, who would have lived here?
Well, actually, you would have had traders, merchants, and the members of the Jewish community.
Oh,
here's
grazie.
your cappuccino. Grazie. Thanks a lot.
Which I know I'm only allowed to drink in the morning, or I would be considered a real tourist.
Not necessarily. You may have a cappuccino also in the afternoon.
Thank you.
You're welcome, my dear.
So traders, merchants would have lived on this side of the Tiber.
The members of the Jewish community till when they were moved to the other side. There's a lot of traditions over here, being reflected in the typical traditional Roman cooking. This is where you find some of the best restaurants in town.
So locals would come to this side of the river for the restaurants.
Definitely, for the great food. There's a lot of clubs, so there's a lot of cafeterias and restaurants that stay open till late at night.
This square, though, it's waking up now. Rome is waking up. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. But it's still very peaceful and beautiful.
And we have a lot of young people around us.
Now, we've spoken of the mosaic on the outside of the church. You said inside?
Inside you find some mosaics dating back to the 8th century, but that one is actually late 1200s. The bell tower is fantastic, and there's another mosaic at the very top. You see
I see it, the Virgin Mary.
With the child.
I see it. They're just beautiful. Mm-hmm. The beautiful doors that
are quite old.
Very.
Up there's the coat of arms of a Della Rovere Pope.
It's a bear with a rose.
Well, actually, the bear with a rose, and this is a hospital for pilgrims.
Oh. So, Franco, you've brought me high above the Piazza del Popolo and back to Egypt.
Yes, definitely. We find another obelisk.
Is there something special about this one?
13th century before Christ. One of the earliest gifts from Egypt. Yes, definitely. Brought under Octavian Augustus. And it was the first obelisk on the spine of the Circus Maximus.
Oh!
That important chariot racing facility. The beautiful Piazza del Popolo, the most important events, even nowadays, musical festivals are held over here. And you see in the distance the Vatican with the dome of St. Peter's Basilica.
Where we are heading next.
Right.
I look forward to that, but this is now the third obelisk we've seen.
Yes.
And we see Egyptomania even in the time of the Caesars.
Definitely. There's another one in the gardens.
There's 4 obelisks. I thought
there's
just 3.
So many obelisks in town, 13 at least.
It's amazing there are any left in Egypt thanks to the Romans.
Right.
Well, at least the Egyptian impressed them.
Definitely.
They impressed me.
Yep.
So we're at Castle Sant'Angelo. Tell me why it's important.
Castel Sant'Angelo is the former mausoleum of Emperor Hadrian, 2nd century AD. Quite a few emperors were buried in there. In the Middle Ages, it's been turned into a castle, into a fortress for popes to find shelter into there during invasions. And in particular, over there, where you see the balcony, that's the papal apartment with splendid frescoes, and the view from the top over the Vatican area and the riverside is magnificent.
So how would the popes get to Castle Sant'Angelo for shelter if they were...
Actually, there's a wall, Il Passetto, which is down there with the hidden passageway, and popes would actually walk through there all the way to the castle.
So they could safely get there.
Definitely. And that was used also as a summer residence, so they did fireworks from here, big parties, and they were enjoying this wonderful view.
Last question. Is Hadrian still buried there?
No, he's not. Inside the St. Peter's Basilica, there's a chapel, the Chapel of St. John the Baptist, with a large baptismal font, and the base, which is a red porphyry, is supposed to be the grave of Hadrian.
So Hadrian's grave may be a baptismal font in the Vatican.
Definitely, yes. So Jane, welcome to the Vatican City. This is what is left of the nation of the popes, the papal state, after the unification of Italy. We're right there by St. Peter's Square, the plaza.
Can we stop and...
Yes, definitely we can. The place of the biggest events in the Catholic Church. Apostolic Palace, the official papal residence. We see those huge windows, the loggias, with the most beautiful frescoes by Raphael and his apprentices. The Sistine Chapel that will be visible in a while. St. Peter's Basilica, the largest church in the Christian world, with its dome designed by Michelangelo, and another of your beloved obelisks.
Another of my, and this one from Egypt, but without hieroglyphs.
Without hieroglyphs, you're right, and it was already 2,000 years old when it was plundered from Egypt and brought to Rome to decorate the stadium of Emperor Caligula.
So Caligula brought this one.
Exactly, and that's where St. Peter was crucified head down under Nero during the first persecutions against the Christians.
It is beautiful. It's just the perfection of Michelangelo.
Perfection of Michelangelo for the dome, and the perfection of a Bernini for the two colonnades. These are like the wide open arms of Mother Church hugging all the Christians.
Now, is this where the Pope would come out and make his statements?
You see top floor, second window from the right. So just next to the Pope's bedroom, that's his studio, and he would be coming out of there every Sunday at noon when he's in town for his prayer, the Angelus, with the audience here in the square.
And it's usually filled, I'm sure.
Definitely, yes. Well, this is the beginning of the big events and the celebrations before Easter.
Oh, okay.
The Catholic Church is getting ready for Easter, for the resurrection of Jesus.
So the screens would broadcast what's in St. Peter's?
Definitely. Or when the Pope is in the square, you see the white canopy over there?
Yeah.
Straight ahead. The Pope would actually be sitting there during the Wednesday's audiences outdoors. And if you don't get to sit close enough to the Pope, you can actually watch him on those jumbo screens.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful day to see it all.
Indeed, it cleared up.
It did, and there are not that many people here today.
Well, like you may have longer lines, especially over there for the security check.
For the security in the museums,
definitely.
But just to enjoy the beauty of the square.
This is just perfect.
It is. It is. Now, Pope Francis does not live in these apartments.
He refused to live inside the Apostolic Palace, which he thought was too fancy for him. He's such a humble man. You see the big gate straight ahead just behind the portrait of St. Peter?
Yes.
That's the so-called Arch of the Bell. So that's the so-called bell tower of the St. Peter's Basilica. Mm-hmm. And that's an official entry into the Vatican State.
Okay.
Just behind, you have the House of St. Martha, which is a sort of a hostel. Yeah. And the Pope is living there in a very small apartment.
Which was his apartment before he was elected
Definitely
Pope.
During his conclave, right.
He is a very humble Pope.
He really is. Ring and cross are made out of iron, not gold.
Instead of gold. It's a first, I believe.
Yes. You should see him going around in Rome and it's a Fiat 500. It's a multi-purpose vehicle taken to places where he buys CDs with classical music
Right.
or boots, simple boots.
That's it. He goes around and
With
shops.
his own money.
With his own money.
Yes.
It's quite, I love it. But I'm sure people are astounded to see the Pope driving around in a Fiat 500
Yes, instead of a BMW.
to buy
or-
classical music.
Exactly. Or no Mercedes, no BMW, just a standard Fiat.
Franco, you have literally shown me world history through one, maybe two cities. We started underground archaeology. We saw Etruscan. We saw ancient Rome, medieval, Renaissance, and now we're at glorious Vatican City. You have taught me so much, and I thought I knew a little before today and yesterday. How can I thank you?
No, grazie to you for giving me the chance to be your guide, your chaperone in the Eternal City, and I hope you're coming back in the future also to see more of these Egyptian obelisks.
Thank you for all the obelisks. Now I've seen 4 or 5 obelisks.
5 in total.
5 obelisks, so I've even been to Egypt, but you've really been wonderful, and I'm going to miss you, and
miss you too.
I'm going to miss the Eternal City.
Come back soon.
I shall. Shall we have a final andiamo?
Definitely.
Final
Prego.
andiamo. I could measure the highlights of my journey around the Western Med in so many ways. By the expert guides who are now friends, the brilliant sunsets as we sailed from quiet harbors, or the iconic sights we saw that more than justified the title of this sailing as the iconic Western Mediterranean. It was an absolute privilege to wander these sites, cities, and villages during the quiet season, when locals outnumber travelers and the whole pace of the region slows down. It was that time to linger with local guides over local specialties that created my top moments of the trip. I learned about the music of Barcelona over tapas and churros. Over wine and vermouth and set, I learned about the foods that Louis XIV ate. In Marseille, I dined like a king on the finest bouillabaisse while learning about the rebirth of this magical city. Lunch on a family farm in Tuscany, where local men they grew it and not local men it came from the farm next door, was straight from a movie. And in Rome, just spending time with Franco over a cappuccino, learning all he could teach me, was a true gift. The quiet season in the Med gave me time to fully savor, both literally and figuratively, the celebrated treasures and pleasures of this beautiful arc of the Mediterranean. Right hand, left shoulder. Toss a coin in the Trevi fountain to guarantee my return to Rome and the Mediterranean. I hope you can experience this journey in the quiet season. Even if you've been to these ports before, you've not seen them when it seems every sight is reserved just for you.